Of the latest development in the telecommunications sector, the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC demanded an immediate suspension of the 50% tariff hike. It directed its branches and affiliates to mobilize members for a nationwide protest rally on Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, to demand reversal of the 50% hike in tariffs by the NCC. It said, should the government and NCC fail to heed the cry of the workers, it will escalate actions, including the possibility of a nationwide boycott of telecommunication services and further mass actions which may involve nationwide withdrawal of our service to resist policies that heighten poverty and inequality. In response, the House of Representatives Committee on Communications has noted that it is interfacing with the leadership of the labor unions. Now, joining us to discuss this is, of course, Justice Ojuna. He's a lawyer, and of course, is right here with me in the studio. How are you doing, Justice?
It's my pleasure to join you. Good evening, and good evening to our listeners.
Fantastic. And of course, via Zoom, I've got Olufemi Lawson, Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability, hanging out there for us. Olufemi, good to have you this evening.
Good evening, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. I'll take on you first quickly. Now, the NLC threatening a nationwide strike sounds to me like a body lacking the patience to have concrete consultations before resorting to the final straw alternative, which is a strike. Now, do you share the same sentiment?
Well, for me, as much as Nigerians have right to, criticize, any policy that seeks to, put further burden on them, particularly in the face of the series of economic challenges that we have faced as a people, we must be able to also draw the line between, public interest and private interest as citizens, particularly as unions. Today, if for any reason workers were down tool because of the price, the hike, in telecommunication fields across the country, then and as a private citizens, we may be forced to ask what we have done as a labor union to down tool or either to protest the rise, the hike in the prices of other, commodities that are, operated, sold, or distributed by private entities, just like these telecommunication, operators. The truth is that the telecom industry is regulated by government, but the operation of these industries are mainly by private investors, private companies, whose ultimate aim of being in the business is to make profit. So if they have gotten to a point that it is no longer profitable for them to sustain the price with which services are being rendered to us as Nigerians, they have right to review this. And I think what is only proper is for NLC or every other stakeholders and the government to engage these companies on how there can be a consideration and a possible reduction in the hike, on the tariffs being paid by Nigerians. But down tooling, I don't think we actually have what it takes in the liberalized market to determine the price. Remember, these companies are not owned by government. They are not operated by government. It may be difficult for us, the labor union, or even the government to determine the price of their services. So I think what we must be interested in doing now as Nigerians, as groups, and the NLC as a labor union is to engage with not only government, but with this company on how it can, or how they can, be considerate in the amount that they will now be charging, as a tariff for telecommunication services in Nigeria.
Justice, you heard him. These are private companies, not owned by government. But according to reports, the NLC is saying the tariff hike is said to be 50%, 200% electricity tariff, petrol price hike, and the argument is based on the fact that Nigerians are already facing too many harsh situations, and the hike is unacceptable. So could this be a basis for the strike to happen?
Okay, for me, I think that that argument is not totally a waste. It's not totally out of place.
Okay.
I feel that in actual fact, all the increases, all the hikes will still boil down to the average Nigerian. So Yeah, do they want to protest? Yes, they absolutely have a right to protest. They have a right to mobilize. But do they have the moral authority to do that in the light of the reality of the circumstances? We shouldn't just protest for the sake of protesting.
Okay.
The telecommunication companies, I read through some of their financial reports as for last year, and it didn't end well. It was only in Q3 that one of them barely scraped out some form of profit, and if you net it off against the losses that they already incurred, it became a gross loss.
Okay, now with this revelation of yours, why is the NLC not even considering that, look, the financial reports of these companies have been released and this is what they are declaring? Shouldn't that also instigate the NLC to also know what to do moving forward instead of just trying to resort to strike? Okay,
one thing again, what I actually feel that they are clamoring for is a protest, where they are saying that it may culminate into a strike. For me, I do not actually concede to it culminating into a strike. Initially, I was actually on their side, being the average Nigerian. I will always side with the NLC or anybody that is fighting for a reduction in my cost. But when I saw the realities of the numbers, and numbers don't lie, facts don't lie, I had to back off a bit on the side of the companies. But we must also note that NLC is saying that they concede to a 5% hike and no more. But after putting my own numbers together, I feel that 5% may not be sufficient. And if we have to let our people to know, what the NCC considered to was a 50% cap. It doesn't necessarily mean that the telecommunication companies have to increase it by 50%. They just said that no matter what you're increasing, do not increase beyond 50%. And I feel that relatively is fair. But if I have to side again with the NLC, I would say the government and the NCC should further bring the cap down. It shouldn't be more than 20%.
So your backing down from the NLC is not total?
It's not total. It can never be total.
Olufemi Lawson, quickly now, then again, the case the telecoms are making is also channeled towards upgrade of their facilities. They're saying that they have to improve their services and deliver efficiency. And are these not weighty enough to warrant the increase with the tariff hike?
In fairness to the companies, not even just about upgrade. If you look at the cost of providing these services, considering the fact that most of the critical infrastructures required for their services are not locally, sourced. As it stands, not more than 16% of telecom infrastructures are sourced locally in Nigeria. So they have to rely on foreign exchange for their software, for their critical infrastructures. Most of the things that are used in building masts, in building base stations are imported. Then you must consider the prevailing circumstances around foreign exchange in the country. So these are product of a chain reaction. It is not just about price increase. So beyond the fact that they have to improve services, it is also about sustaining even the current infrastructures that we have relied on in getting these services provided by the telecom company. The reality is that if the foreign exchange rate, if the economic challenges that we have experienced can actually tell on every other product, including foods and basic amenities in the country, I don't think there's a way it will not have affected the telecom services in the country. We could only appeal that these countries are considerate in the hike, but that there should be no increase. I don't think it is fair on the part of the companies, considering the prevailing economic reality, considering the prevailing, forex situation that Nigeria is currently confronted with.
All right, we'll take a time out now, and Newsweek continues in a moment. Stay with us.